ladies and gentlemen. The main theme of these lectures, the physician and the society. And I have discussed yesterday on the making of the physician. The emergence of the physician of today, who bases his practice of modern scientific methods from the earlier traditional one based on experience, observation, was stressed. Modern scientific medicine began with the better knowledge of human biology. It was this knowledge, the understanding of cellular structures and their functions, and the influence of environment on disease that led to the development of scientific thought. There is a general awareness of the need for better health. The interplay between the awareness that better health is a part of human life and the demand for it was also brought out. The disparity that prevails between the developed and developing countries and the emergence of modern scientific medicine in India was also pointed out. Again, I have tried to show the impact of modern medicine on the cultural and economic setup in our country. The need for close collaboration between the biological sciences, physical sciences, and also subjects such as sociology and psychology in the study of medicine was emphasized. The advantages of giving the University Grants Commission additional responsibility in the context of university education for medicine for further development was also emphasized. The importance of inculcating in the minds of the students a sense of devotion and commitment and a desire to help the poor and needy was very essential. It is for this purpose, the only way one can be able to achieve this is to have in the minds of teachers a concern and a devotion for the people. Today I want to talk on the role of the physician in the society. The physician of today is the product of the 20th century revolution of science and technology. He has been educated and trained in an atmosphere of scientific inquiry and appreciation of molecular biology. To play his role, the role of the physician, he has to undergo an undergraduate medical education, the objective of which is to produce a basic doctor who is trained to meet the primary health needs of the society. His training has to be such that he is capable of expanding his knowledge in any branch of medicine he so desires. The emphasis laid is on the excellence, the philosophy of the first rate in education. He is expected to have had a general education in biological and physical sciences as a basis for his studies of human biology, disease processes, and behavioral sciences. Also, he is expected to have a general knowledge of world affairs to comprehend and guide the society in which he lives. After the course of studies, he should be able to manage all common illnesses in both in their curative and preventive aspects. He should have a sound grasp of the needs of society to advise on environmental and public health problems. He must have sufficient knowledge to advise his patients to seek specialty services, or in other words, he must have an awareness of his own limitations. The theme that medicine is a lifelong study and that one must progressively acquire more and more knowledge is a constant byword of every physician and medical educator. The advances in medicine and technology is very rapid, and hence if the physician does not keep up with these advances, he will not be able to take advantage of such progress. This newer knowledge includes better understanding of the disease processes and the mode of actions of new drugs discovered. The scientific and technological developments in medicine have made it possible to carry out investigations as an aid to the diagnosis. The sophistications vie with the time-honored art of clinical medicine. Sophistication of scientific medicine has come to such a stage when it is necessary to take note of the profession of medicine in its relation to humanity and the role of the physician in the vast changing world of today. It is a truism to say that the physician exerts a far-reaching influence on the individual, family, and society. No longer a physician just a family doctor, nor is his services limited to any particular strata of society. By his training and by the opportunities that he would have had in understanding some special problems in health and disease, he necessarily plays a wider role in the affairs of human society. No member of any other profession becomes involved in the life of another individual as does a doctor. He has been, from time immemorial, not only an advisor on health problems of the individual, but also has been given the privilege of becoming a close member of the family, sharing with them their joys and sorrows. The physician has been a kind of a hero to the family, and by his unstaining efforts at all times, he has truly proved to be a welcome messenger of relief of suffering and pain, both physical and mental. This role of the physician, with his intimate relationship with the individual and family, is changing rapidly in the context of the scientific developments in medicine. Thus, at present, there is a conflict between the image of the physician as a father figure and a scientifically trained, sophisticated person. In recent times, the patients are increasingly become dissatisfied with the physician, although they are more capable than in the past. The public have started to feel that the physician of today is businesslike, impersonal, and sophisticated, and as such has lost the intimacy and admiration which used to be predominant before. Although the patient may admire the efficacy of the medical profession, he is offended by the impersonal attitude towards their personal ailments. The academicians or the highly trained physicians are accused of being more interested in organs and molecules than in people, and also the general practitioners get the blame that they are more interested in material award than in the patients. Specialization, though it may give a deeper knowledge of the subject, limits the interests of the physicians to a particular disease or organ. It is therefore difficult to deal with the individual as a whole, and hence the tendency to impersonalization. Coincident with the specialization and with its alleged depersonalization of medical practice, medical research has also greatly increased. This coincidence has led some observers to state that science is dominating art and the medicine has lost its humanistic value of caring for the sick. They claim that over-specialization has fostered the competent but impersonal physician interested in the part rather than in the whole. Critics often blame the advancement of science for such a state of affairs, but the blame cannot be laid here entirely. Towards the beginning of the century, medical education was improved and then standardized in order to maintain that improvement. New techniques and tools were discovered and new specialties have sprung up. The goal to provide the best medical care gave medicine the zeal of a calling, demanding rigor and self-denial. In this type of medical education, a high premium is placed upon discipline, objectivity, emotional stability, and dignity, which makes the medical student guard against the human tendency to relax his discipline. Instead, he tries to acquire new skills and techniques and certifications of his abilities in these techniques. He becomes a specialist. To the patient, his physician's dignified, realistic, and calm attitude seems as if he is aloof, detached, and unmoved. The critics have to understand that the physician's medical training taught him that in his professional dealing he is less disciplined when he becomes more free, less emotionally stable when he is more compassionate, and less objective when more imaginative. This is the main reason for the seeming lack of human value and depersonalization of the doctor-patient relationship. Another reason for seeming aloofness of the physician can be attributed to the fact that there is a tendency for the physician to depend more and more on laboratory investigations rather than on his clinical impressions. This has made scientific medicine, with all its laboratory investigations, out of reach of the majority of the people who are poor in developing countries. This apparent discrimination results in poor people seeking refuge in less costly indigenous system of medicine based on tradition, empirism, and observation. The advances in the treatment of diseases have not kept pace with the physician's ability to make correct scientific diagnosis, and hence the power to cure as much less than his ability to understand the disease processes. This state of affairs makes the physician frustrated, yet he is also aware of the fact that he has more power to harm his patients by acts of commission and omission. Though the knowledge to prevent disease has undoubtedly increased, the physician does not have the means to implement much of his knowledge. The power to prevent disease in many instances rests with the government and the social order. The change in environmental hygiene requires recognition and acceptance by the society and active implementation by governmental organizations. For example, it is essential for better health to have adequate and proper food, good water supply, drainage, housing, prevention of communicable diseases through inoculations, eradication of mosquitoes and other reservoirs of infection. Above all, even malnutrition has to be prevented. All this in turn reflects on the socio-economic development of the society, and if one wants to meet these needs, the governmental agencies have to take active part. Even though knowledge in medicine has increased throughout the world, its application varies from place to place, depending on what is most wanted from it and how much and in what way it is given. The application of the knowledge of medicine has to depend on the desire of the community or the society and the way the physician introduces the knowledge through his dealings with the people so that it becomes acceptable to the society. Within a community, the individual estimates of the profession varies from person to person. Increasingly, every country and every individual is becoming more conscious of the effectiveness of medicine, and they are making use of it, but they tend to overrate its power and underrate its danger. On the one hand, the profession tends to be more respected by the people, and on the other, they also have become much more critical. The more sophisticated the community or individual, there is a better realization that medicine is specialized and that all its powers are not found in one man. This does not mean that such people do not accept the importance of a personal physician for general advice and seek specialty services in consultation with the personal physicians. The manner and the degree of the physician's collaboration with not only specialists but also other workers in the health team has not been fully appreciated. The effectiveness of the specialist depends on his team of laboratory workers who would give him the data. The effectiveness of the general practitioner again depends on his team of paramedical workers and health educators. Health development of any country depends on the efforts of the health team consisting of physicians, paramedical workers, social scientists, and the organizations of the community and local and national governments. The physician cannot be merely oriented towards the curative aspects of medicine, but he has to have a better understanding of prevention and of environmental conditions. Moreover, he must also have the ability to utilize his team in carrying out preventive measures for better health. There will be larger but fewer hospitals. Isolated doctors will coalesce into more centrally situated and better equipped hospitals. This is happening in spite of policies of the governments. The main reason being the era of independent practitioners are going away, and now it is an era of medical group services. This becomes very much more difficult in our sociological order, particularly in the villages. In the primary health centers, it is extremely difficult to have any association for one physician who may be treating 60 to 100,000 people. But the patterns have to be worked out. In this setup, there will be many types of medical and health workers, and they will hold licenses of different kinds. But the emphasis has to be on teamwork. One of modern medicine's most critical problems is that there are more doctors than other medical staff or paramedical workers, and the health team has become top-heavy. Therefore, we must have more paramedical workers to help the doctors. The concept of health team is relatively new, though each role in the health team is important. No attempt has been made to define them properly, nor to plan for the education and training of the health team as an integrated and an integral part of that unit. This is probably the important reason for shortage of comprehensive health care in our country. The physician should be the leader of the health team and be able to carry on the authority and responsibility that his training implies. He should be allowed to restrict his personal involvement to that for which his training qualifies him. Only in this way will he be able to assume the role as a leader in the team. From what has been said before, the physician should have the knowledge, skill, and analytical mind, but above all, a right attitude of concern for the alleviation of suffering. This is the problem of medical education in every country. If medical education tries to bring about all skills and knowledge in one individual, it will invariably fail. Not only that the society does not expect any one individual to have all the skills, but it is not practicable. The various members of the medical team should possess the skill necessary for the work at hand. The common factor binding all these members of the team together should be the overall concern for the alleviation of suffering. Every member of the team should have the ability to profit from experience and be able critically to evaluate and use his knowledge appropriately in the environment in which he is placed. It is important to realize that the knowledge so gained will affect not only the society but also produce changes in the practice of medicine, both in its content and organization. This will inevitably lead to a new kind of relationship between the physician and the people. One must remember both the society as well as the physician are dynamic forces which change continuously. Every country will have to program its own medical education to meet its own special needs, keeping in mind the general principles uh, enunciated in the development of the basic doctor. The emphasis may have to vary depending on the population distribution as to rural and urban areas, population growth, medical manpower requirements, financial resources, and in general the socio-economic development of the country. It must also be noted that in developing countries there is an increasing industrialization leading to urbanization, which will consequently reflect on the specialization and the training that may be required. It is a great concern among medical educators in developing countries that due to general scarcity of economic resources in these countries, the government is obliged to establish priorities which may affect medical education and consequently medical service. But man's health and well-being is essential for his productivity. Therefore, the expenses incurred for promoting health must not be considered in terms of expenditure only, but as capital development. The role of the majority of physicians today in our country must be that of a general practitioner who can meet the needs of the masses of people. Since 40% of our population is below the age of 15, obviously the physician must have adequate knowledge to deal with pediatric problems. They must be well acquainted with all general medical problems, particularly infectious diseases and diseases due to malnutrition. In a society which faces the tremendous population explosion, the importance of adequate knowledge in family planning cannot be overemphasized. Adequate knowledge for the prevention of diseases, environmental sanitation, and comprehensive understanding of the community's problems is essential for every general practitioner. Especially, we are thinking in terms of the general practitioner, not only for the urban areas, but also for the rural areas. They have to be not only leaders of the medical team, but also able to give advice and counsel in every aspect of the family and the society. The training of these physicians has to be so adjusted that they may not feel frustrated in confronting the situation in which they may be placed. Obviously, some physicians will desire to specialize in one branch or other of their choice in medical work. They have to learn much more in depth in that particular branch of medicine so that they can function as consultant for specific problems. The levels of such specialists will also vary depending on the need and opportunities for specialization. The period of such a training will also vary depending on the subject. Naturally, these specialists tend to congregate into small or larger hospitals, and they will be using more sophisticated procedures for investigation and treatment. They too have a specific place in the society, and their role as a specialist is necessary for the well-being of the community. Even though there may be considerable demand for specialist services in smaller or larger hospitals, all the teachers in any teaching hospital will have to have specialty training. Postgraduate qualifications are essential to be a teacher. In the 92 medical colleges in our country today, more than 20% of the existing posts have not been filled in. In medical education, the students spend nearly 1/3 of their time in basic medical sciences. The lack of teachers in these basic medical sciences is a disturbing factor. In all medical colleges, even non-medical teachers who have specialized in these basic medical sciences are being progressively utilized at least in some subjects in most of the colleges. To attract well-trained physicians to take responsibility as teachers both in basic medical sciences and in clinical sciences is the concern of all medical administrators. In creative work like teaching or research, the provision of stimulating conditions of work and adequate opportunities for professional advancement are extremely important and play a very significant role in attracting and retaining the right type of person in this profession. The conditions of work in educational institutions should be such as to enable teachers to function at their highest level of efficiency. This would imply the provision of at least certain minimum facilities, essential teaching aids, library and laboratory facilities, and maintenance of a manageable student-teacher ratio. This will also imply a system which encourages initiative, experimentation, and creativity and gives adequate freedom to teachers in the organization of the courses and the use of methods and techniques they consider most suitable. The hours of work should be so adjusted as to give these teachers sufficient time to study for preparation for teaching. Adequate facilities also be provided for professional growth by giving them opportunities to conduct research. In a smaller or greater measure, every teacher should participate in some kind of research activity. Thus, it may be possible to encourage suitable persons with concern for the society to enter into teaching profession. The question of part-time teachers has been under discussion for many years. This is more so in clinical fields. If the teacher is more concerned with his private patients and associated lucrative practice, it will be practically impossible for him to devote enough time for teaching and research. Therefore, I make a plea that the role of the physician as a teacher should be full-time, and his concern should be to make it possible to create an atmosphere of enquiry in the minds of the students. At best, the teacher can only create an atmosphere in which the student can learn. The importance of a teaching hospital to teach clinical sciences is an accepted fact. It must be noted that in every teaching hospital, considerable sophistication in technological diagnostic methods may also be available. But the future physicians, many of them who may be trained, may also have to practice in conditions where such facilities may not be available. Therefore, it is imperative that besides the teaching hospital, every medical college must be responsible for the total health needs of a specific community. The participation of all teachers in the community health program is an ideal way to inculcate in the minds of the students a sense of community practice. The importance of the teachers participating in such activities has been already stressed. It is important to realize that the medical research must be so oriented as to meet the needs of the society. The changing conditions of the society demand changing emphasis will also change. The approach for health problems may as well change. The resources of our country really does not provide funds for fundamental basic researches. When I use fundamental, where the need for use of that particular knowledge in practical everyday life is what is meant by fundamental research. At least for the time being, the emphasis in research will have to be directed towards practical application in the advancement of various fields to suit the needs of the community. The students, both at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels, must be exposed to scientific inquiry so that they understand not only the method of research but also get an insight into the needs of the society. It is gratifying to note that the Indian Council of Medical Research is primarily concerned to promote medical research in all the medical colleges in our country. It is often noted that to be a good research worker, one has to acquire very much more basic knowledge on basic subjects, including associated scientific disciplines. Biochemistry, physics, mathematics have become so important in the study in depth to deal with almost any problem in the medical field. Knowledge of atomic physics, electronics, has become such a necessity to undertake in all sophisticated experimental medical studies. To become a research worker, often the physician may have to spend considerable amount of time in acquiring knowledge in some of these allied fields where he may not have had a good grounding before taking up medical studies. In research, interdepartmental or interdisciplinary collaboration has become a necessity. Any one person cannot become proficient in many facets of scientific disciplines. Hence, the necessity again for teamwork, even in research, cannot be overemphasized. The role of a physician as a teacher and a research worker is not only important to perform their functions in the medical colleges, but they also make possible further advancement in medicine in the society and the country. They are the people who are dynamically changing and advancing the scientific knowledge in modern medicine. The physician has a role to play also as an administrator. It might seem tragic that a competent clinician or a research worker takes the responsibility as an administrator in medical services or administration of hospitals or in teaching institutions. Yet it is necessary that such an administrators must have the same qualities and same type of training to understand the problems of the whole medical profession. The physician of today has many functions. Above all, they have to be dedicated to the service of the community. Thank you.